Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Many of y'all who've been listening the last couple of weeks and months know this Louisville team heading into 2024, one of the more fascinating programs to kind of keep an eye on in the ACC in the 2024 year. You go back to year one under Coach Brohm in 2023. This was a program that won 10 games, competed for an ACC championship. And I think you look at this Louisville team heading into year two in 2024 saying, this team gets better at most positions heading into the 2024 year. I think this is a more talented Louisville team, albeit a harder schedule as well. But for Louisville fans, I mean, I think you make no mistake about it. This is a team that at their best, if all these transfers come together, this team can compete at the highest level of the ACC. I'm fired up to get into this depth chart, take a look at the schedule, and, kind of project this team heading into 2024, fired up to get into it. Before we do, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And many of y'all know these are my favorite kind of episodes to do, these preseason reviews. I learn a ton from you guys in the comment section. So for the Louisville fans, if I'm sleeping on some players that you think I need to add to my notebook, please let me know in the comment section. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. A lot of fun game predictions for this Louisville team coming up in 2024. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start on the offensive side of the football where, at least in my notes, I have them getting better at every single position besides the running back room heading into 2024. Let's start with the quarterback spot where, the Louisville fans who've been rocking with the fellas for the last 12 to 8 months, you guys kind of know my take on Jack Plummer. I thought he was an average at best quarterback in the ACC last year, and I think it really showed how good of a Coach Brohm is in terms of still having a team that won 10 football games with a quarterback that I didn't really think elevated this offense. In fact, I think it kind of took this offense down a notch where, Coach Brohm couldn't go to some of the stuff he wants to go to because Jack Plummer, just from a physical trait standpoint, he was awfully limited. Couldn't really extend plays outside the pocket. There were certain throws on the football field that you couldn't really ask Jack Plummer to make. I think what's so fascinating about this Louisville team is you're bringing Tyler Shough. We obviously have to start with if Tyler Shough stays healthy, which is, let's just be frank, a big if. He hasn't really stayed healthy for a college football season yet. But if he does stay healthy, I think this is a massive upgrade from Jack Plummer heading into 2024. Tyler Shough, big-time arm talent. There was a reason he was a top 100 national recruit coming out of high school. He's a big body that can extend plays out of the pocket. He can be a playmaker at the quarterback position in ways that Jack Plummer just simply couldn't. And I think Tyler Shough's a quarterback where Jeff Brohm can run his offense because he has a quarterback that's talented enough to do so. I think that's one of the biggest storylines heading into 2024 is just the pure upgrade that you get at the quarterback position with the healthy Tyler Shough. Now, I think another sneaky upgrade for this Louisville team is at the wide receiver, I would say pass catcher position, because I think they make some massive additions in the tight end room as well. Starting with the wide receiver room, you lose your wide receiver one from last year in Jamari Thrash, who was a very, very good wideout in 2023. Why I think this Louisville pass catching room gets better is because you just have more playmakers who can catch the football and make plays. You go back to last year, it kind of felt like if it wasn't Jamari Thrash, there really wasn't many plays being made in the pass catcher room. You look at heading into 2024, let's start with the transfers. Colin Lacey, one of the most productive wide receivers in the country coming in from South Alabama. This is a wide receiver that if you can get him in space, he's going to be one of the more dynamic playmakers with the football in his hands. Now he's coming into an offense where, hey, look, Coach Brohm, he knows how to get his wide receivers in space. This is a coach that knows how to dial it up for guys like Colin Lacey. And you go to the other side and say Ja'Cory Brooks, I think people are just kind of missing the boat in terms of how they talk about Ja'Cory Brooks as a five-star washout. We've seen Ja'Cory Brooks play like a five-star player at Alabama in 2022. So we know Ja'Cory Brooks can play at a very high level at the collegiate level. Can we get that version of Ja'Cory Brooks once again in 2024? That could be a true wide receiver one. And then maybe the most talented wide receiver on this Louisville team, Chris Bell, coming back. Chris Bell is just a big frame that can do a lot of things at a very high level. And so if Chris Bell kind of takes that jump, true sophomore, year one with Coach Brohm, what's he look like going into his third year as a college football player? I look at Ja'Cory Brooks, Chris Bell, and Colin Lacey and say, that's a better wide receiver room than what Louisville had last year, even though you lose a guy like Jamari Thrash. And then the tight end position, a position that is a staple in the Coach Brohm offense, didn't really have a difference maker tight end last year. You bring in two really intriguing names. Let's start with Mark Redmond, a guy that's just been really productive at San Diego State, 6'5", 250 pounds. He can be a guy that Jeff Brohm can run a passing attack through. The guy I'm kind of keeping an eye on is Jaleel Skinner. Again, we haven't seen a ton from Jaleel Skinner coming from Miami. That being said, this is a fascinating kid that can be just a matchup nightmare if he puts it all together and if he's used the right way. And I just kind of have some confidence that Coach Brohm can use him in the right way. So I think Mark Redmond, Jaleel Skinner, that's a massive upgrade at the tight end position. I think the only position that, Louisville, it's hard to argue, gets better in is the running back room, where Jawar Jordan and Isaac Arenda, that was one of the better running back duos that we saw in the country last year. Now you bring in Donald Chaney from Miami. You have Maurice Turner coming into year 3. You have some young running backs that, I read the spring practice notes, the summer workout notes. I think Louisville likes as well. I don't think the running back room will be as good as it was last year. I don't think it's going to be a liability for Louisville either. You look at the offensive line, I think it just starts with experience. This is a really good offensive line with really good football players that kind of make this starting 5. I think the bigger question is, does it come together from a chemistry standpoint? We kind of know that continuity with the offensive line, it means a lot. Now, what makes me feel good about the continuity of this offensive line and the chemistry is these guys have played a ton of football. You look at Monroe Mills at left tackle, 1,700 career snaps. Michael Gonzalez, probably the best offensive lineman on this Louisville team, has played over 2,100 snaps. Pete Negro at center, 1,500 snaps. Renato Brown, 2,300 snaps. And then Jonathan Mendoza coming from Yale, over 1,500 snaps. And every single offensive lineman that's projected to start for this Louisville team is going into year 3 as starters at the college football level. It is an extremely experienced offensive line, which at least me doing my offseason notes say I have a lot of confidence that the offensive line is going to be at the very least a quality unit for Louisville with some potential really high upside, as I think you have some NFL kind of guys on the offensive line as well, headlined by Michael Gonzalez. So experience, I think it's deep. I kind of like this Louisville offense on paper heading into 2024, all being run by what I think is one of the better coaches in the country, and Coach Brohm designing this offense. Now, you go to the defensive side of the football, a really solid defense for Louisville last year. Let's start in the front 7, where this team was a lead against the run last year, right? 3.5 yards per carry allowed. That was top 16 in the country. It's headlined by edge rusher Ashton Gelati, who not only is an elite pass rusher, 42 quarterback hurries, he also had almost 20 run stops. This is an edge rusher that not only can get after the passer, but can be a force in the run game. I love the depth on the inside of the defensive line. You're bringing Thor Griffith from Harvard. You're bringing Jordan Garrard from FIU. You have a guy like Ray Kogna coming in from Rutgers. I mean, these are all really quality additions to the inside of the defensive line. You return some guys that are going into their 4th and 5th years. Look at the inside of the defensive line and say, I don't know if there is that premier NFL talent like you have on the edge with Ashton Gelati. It's deep and it's solid. And that's kind of what you want your inside of the defensive line looking at, like, heading into a college football season. On the other side of the football, I would just keep my eyes on a guy like Tramel Logan, who had 27 quarterback hurries coming over from USF. Now, he transferred post-spring practice, so we don't have a ton of knowledge about how he's kind of factoring in to this Louisville edge rusher room. That being said, he's an elite pass rusher. And if he can kind of take what he did at USF the last couple of years, translate it to the Power 4 level in the ACC, I think you have potentially a really dynamic edge rusher in Tramel Logan. You look at the linebacker room, I think it's headlined by TJ Quinn. I think this is a room that can get better, and I think it will get better, right? TJ Quinn, the guy that you kind of trust, he just knows how to find the football, led the team in tackles last year. Who I'm looking at is Stanquan Clark. This was a fascinating prospect for me coming out of high school, Miami Central, where he played a lot of safety, ran an 11.2 in the 100-meter dash, moving up to linebacker, continuing to put on this weight. This kid flies around the football field. And if he puts it together from a between-the-ears standpoint in terms of diagnosing what's happening in front of him, being able to play a little bit faster mentally, I think this can be one of the better linebackers in the ACC. Maybe not in 2024. There's a ton of potential to this kid, over the next 3 to 4 years. I'm a massive fan of Stanquan Clark, and if he can break out in 2024, I mean, I think this linebacker room gets better. A linebacker room that I don't think necessarily played great for Louisville last year. You go to the secondary, it's really good. It's obviously headlined by one of the top cornerbacks in the country, in Quincy Riley, who faced 68 targets last year and had a completion percentage when targeted of 36.5%. That's an incredible stat. I mean, this is a guy that just balls weren't getting completed when they were thrown his way. Now, on the other side of the football, you have Corey Thornton, who's played over 2,500 snaps coming from UCF, faced 51 targets last year, only gave up a 51% completion percentage. Doesn't sound as impressive because we just read Quincy Riley's stats. That's really impressive too for Corey Thornton. Probably should have led with Corey Thornton and then second with Quincy Riley. I think the boundary cornerback position is really, really good. Tavion Nicholson coming over from Illinois, that's a starting football player at the Power 4 level. I don't even know if he will start. You look at Benjamin Perry at the star position, really, really good in the run game as kind of that box hybrid, can do a lot of different things. You look at Devin Neal as a ball hawking safety, 4 interceptions last year. You bring in some really nice experience and guys like Tamarian McDonald. I look at the secondary and say, all right, you're going to have a really good defensive line. At least I think it is going to be headlined by Ashton Gelati. You have an improved linebacker room. And I think one of the top secondaries that you'll see in the ACC. I mean, Louisville's checking so many boxes in terms of what you're looking for programs heading into a 2024 college football season. Now, you go to the schedule. It's a harder schedule. There's no way around it. It's a harder schedule than we saw last year for Coach Brohm. You start off with Austin Peay, Jacksonville State, both at home, should be wins going into your bye week 2-0. You get Georgia Tech at home, which I think is massive in terms of, I think Georgia Tech's a hard place to play away from home, and I think they're going to be a tricky team. I like them playing at home. I'll take Louisville to win that football game. On the road against Notre Dame, right now sitting here, it's hard for me to pick Louisville, but a 4-0 Louisville team that's probably a top 20 team heading into that matchup, that's going to be a very exciting matchup. You get SMU at home, that's massive. You go on the road to Virginia, and like you could play Virginia on Mars. I think Louisville's winning that football game. So you're kind of looking at a 5-1 team that is hosting a Miami team that I think will be a top 15 team at that time. That is, it's homecoming. It's going to be a rowdy environment. Hopefully it's going to be a night game. I'm not going to take Louisville to win this game right now because I am a massive fan of this Miami team on paper. That being said, I think a lot of Miami fans would agree with this. You're getting Miami on the road in a massive game. That is where Miami has struggled the most. So if this Louisville team is a one-loss team hosting a top 15 team in Miami, Louisville will probably be a top 25 team themselves. It's going to be a rowdy environment. Louisville certainly could win that football game. You go on the road to Boston College. I think that's a win. On the road at Clemson, probably lost. Stanford, Pitt, and then on the road at Kentucky. Kentucky will be a quality team. That's probably going to be the game that, I think gets them to 9, maybe 10 wins. That's kind of what you're looking at. I think this Louisville team, again, it's a tougher schedule. You go on the road to Clemson. You go on the road to Notre Dame. You host Miami. You play SMU. You obviously go on the road to Kentucky, It's a harder schedule, and you go on the road for some big games. That being said, I think this Louisville team is better than we saw last year, which I think makes them extremely dangerous, especially going year 2 under a coach where I think everyone's going to be a little bit more comfortable within this program. Really exciting team. A lot of game predictions for us to kind of rock and roll with during the season. Would love for you guys to let me know how you guys are feeling in the comments section. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.